What's the Somali word for chair?
كرسي.
What's the Somali word for ear?
ديك.
What's the Somali word for walk?
صعد.
What's the Somali word for knee?
جليب.
What's the Somali word for shop?
دكان.
What's the Somali word for sleep?
هردو.
What's the Somali word for read?
أخري.
What's the Somali word for pen?
قليم.
What's the Somali word for book?
بوك.
What's the Somali word for right?
قار.
What's the Somali word for foot?
رك.
What's the Somali word for eye?
إيشا.
What's the Somali word for listen?
دقيسو.
What's the Somali word for run?
أورات.
What's the Somali word for drink?
أب.
What's the Somali word for finger?
فر.
What's the Somali word for nose?
تنكا.
What's the Somali word for stand?
استاك.
What's the Somali word for head?
مدح.
What's the Somali word for hospital?
إسبيتال.
What's the Somali word for mosque?
مساجي.
What's the Somali word for sit?
فديسو.
What's the Somali word for hand?
gacan,
What's the Somali word for leg?
look,
What's the Somali word for mouth?
af,
What's the Somali word for market?
suq,
What's the Somali word for teacher?
ma'alin,
What's the Somali word for country?
dal,
What's the Somali word for medicine?
dawo,
What's the Somali word for laugh?
qosol,
What's the Somali word for color?
midab,
What's the Somali word for rain?
roob,
What's the Somali word for street?
wado,
What's the Somali word for house?
guri,
What's the Somali word for water?
biyo,
What's the Somali word for fire?
dab,
What's the Somali word for smile?
lola adain,
What's the Somali word for student?
arday,
What's the Somali word for city?
magalo,
What's the Somali word for mountain?
bur,
What's the Somali word for sea?
bat,
What's the Somali word for train?
taren,
What's the Somali word for plane?
diyarat,
What's the Somali word for fish?
kalun,
What's the Somali word for meat?
hilib,
What's the Somali word for egg?
Ukun.
What's the Somali word for banana?
Moss.
What's the Somali word for apple?
Tufah.
What's the Somali word for tea?
Shah.
What's the Somali word for sugar?
Sonkor.
What's the Somali word for salt?
Milih.
What's the Somali word for oil?
Salid.
What's the Somali word for butter?
Subak.
What's the Somali word for bread?
Roti.
What's the Somali word for rice?
Baris.
What's the Somali word for chicken?
Digag.
What's the Somali word for vegetable?
Hudar.
What's the Somali word for camel?
Gay.
What's the Somali word for cow?
Law.
What's the Somali word for donkey?
Damer.
What's the Somali word for goat?
Ari.
What's the Somali word for sheep?
Ido.
What's the Somali word for hat?
Kofiyet.
What's the Somali word for shoe?
Kabo.
What's the Somali word for toothbrush?
Adey.
What's the Somali word for soap?
Sabun.
What's the Somali word for towel?
Shukuman.
What's the Somali word for table?
Miis.
What's the Somali word for window?
Daaqad.
What's the Somali word for door?
Albaab.
What's the Somali word for wall?
Derbi.
What's the Somali word for ceiling?
Saqaf.
What's the Somali word for clock?
Saa'ad.
What's the Somali word for broom?
Haqin.
What's the Somali word for needle?
Irbat.
What's the Somali word for thread?
Dun.
What's the Somali word for scissors?
Maqas.
What's the Somali word for cup?
Kop.
What's the Somali word for spoon?
Qado.
What's the Somali word for fork?
Fargeeto.
What's the Somali word for knife?
Mindi.
What's the Somali word for bottle?
Dalo.
What's the Somali word for bucket?
Baldi.
What's the Somali word for ladder?
Jaranjar.
What's the Somali word for key?
Furaha.
What's the Somali word for lock?
Kuful.
What's the Somali word for window?
Daaqad.
What's the Somali word for curtain?
Dah.
What's the Somali word for lamp?
Lambat.
What's the Somali word for fan?
Marawahat.
What's the Somali word for light?
15.
What's the Somali word for electricity?
Koronto.
What's the Somali word for shadow?
Horse.
What's the Somali word for idea?
Fikret.
What's the Somali word for respect?
Hushmat.
What's the Somali word for message?
Farin.
What's the Somali word for breakfast?
Qura.
What's the Somali word for lunch?
Kado.
What's the Somali word for dinner?
Asho.
What's the Somali word for hot?
Kulul.
What's the Somali word for cold?
Kabo.
What's the Somali word for friend?
Sahib.
What's the Somali word for enemy?
Ado.